Hey everybody, it's me, Marco from Inks, and today we're going to talk about the right exposure of your Polaroid images. So a lot of you guys asked me in the comments like how to expose your image the right way. Well, there is no easy answer for that, and we will talk about that in this episode, but first I want to say a few words to you. Sorry that I wasn't away for 1 week, but I needed a break, and I hope you guys understand. And I really want to thank you for all your nice comments on the last video about my grandpa. I'm thankful and I'm like with my thoughts with all of you guys that went through something similar or something. The comments were amazing. My mom was going through them too, and she said I should thank you guys for sharing that, and she was really touched by all the stuff, and like even when she was telling me that she read it, like tears start coming down her chin. So yeah, like thanks a lot for everything and thanks for being there. But let's get into it. The right exposure. What do we have to think about? So how does an automatic exposure camera work actually? The automatic exposure is handled by a reference that is saved into the camera. And as soon as the camera has enough light to hit that, it closes the shutter. Just to explain that, the camera is referenced to a gray tone of 33%. And that's where it tries to pull your image. Imagine this, it's a white fabric or board with white dishes on top and something else in white. Just try to get that white to that gray level that we have as a reference. Just makes the white kind of this grayish, bad looking image. That's what came out when I took it to white. And now let's take the opposite. Just blacken the image. We have a black background, we have black stuff on top flying on it. What does it do? It pulls all these blacks into the highlight, like gets them lighter. So we also get a grayish image. So just compare these two images. They're still dark and light, they're not black and they're not white, so there's a difference. So we have to think about that. When you take your image, you have to keep that in mind, because if the image is white and you take a picture with the automatic setting in the middle, it will come out like this. What do we need to do? We need to make the picture a little bit lighter, so we go to the plus side, to the white side of the camera. If we have an image that's really dark and we want that dark, we need to put it to the darkness side. We need to darken the image a little bit. I took these two images with the new Polaroid Originals 1 Step 2. Then I took two more with the new Lomo Instant Square, which I was like, the first image I took was with the square on white, and I was amazed because the image turned out like I would imagine, really white. But I was already like a little bit, something's fishy here. And then I took the black image, and as you can see, the black image turned out, it's really bright. There's like even the reflections of the light on the black came out super bright. That's not a black image. You asked me the right exposure. The right exposure is in your head. You need to think about your motive and need to set your camera the right way. If you have an image, just imagine you're walking outside, you're in the forest, a really dark environment, dark greens on floor, you have the trees that are brownish, and maybe you have some sky in the background. But what would happen if you take a picture now? Picture would be pretty bright. Try to put that dark forest into a bright scenery, and we want that darkish, moody look. So we need to underexpose the image a little bit or darken it to have this dark look we actually are seeing with our eyes and that we want to capture. The other way around, if we have a portrait maybe of a pale person in front of a white wall, what do we need to do? We need to lighten it, because otherwise this will look like mushy. It's not that hard if you think a little bit about it, but it's also tricky. I can't tell you what's the right exposure for the films, because they change a lot. From generation to generation of development, with the Polaroid film, the sensitivity changed a little bit always. Sometimes it's good to underexpose, sometimes good is over to expose. At the moment, in my opinion, it's good to underexpose a little bit. So how does the camera measure that? In the front here, for exactly 1 Step 2, you see this little opening, and this little opening is actually the light meter that measures the light that comes into the camera. There would be a possible failure if there's maybe some reflection pointing exactly onto that light meter. So if you have some bright light shining into it, it would completely underexpose the image. And that happens, for example, if you shoot directly into the sun. That could be a really dark image, because there's something shining directly onto that sensor and closing the shutter immediately. On the 600 camera, for example, light meter is here, below the viewfinder. And this light meter, if you take a close look, has these black lines. If you put it to the side that says you want to brighten the image, it makes it that the light meter is covered by more black. So it needs more light to come through to expose it. if we put it to darken, there's less black lines in front of the light meter. There's more light coming through to the sensor, and it closes the shutter earlier. That's how that works. It's the same for the 600 camera, it's the same for an S670. With the I-type I can't really look inside, but it's all the same principles. This one, the only problem is with the I-type is that you just have one step plus, one step minus, and the same is for the low instant square. So there you're a little bit limited in the under and overexposure like the control, but with the 600 cameras you can really change that just a little bit underexposure, just a little bit overexposure. That's a really nice feature to have with this camera that I'm kind of missing on both the Lomo Instant Square and the Polaroid Originals in 1 Step 2. I also took one image with the flash, which turned out that's kind of where I actually would like it. But the only thing that turned out like this is because of the reflection, and the flash was reflecting of a subject, so that's also something to keep in mind. Sometimes it happens that you take a picture of a person and he's standing in front of a like glass or mirror or something. Then the flash bounces back off that mirror exactly into your light meter, and then the picture turns out pretty dark because it doesn't light the whole image, or the reflection is too strong into the light meter. That's one problem we have with flash photography. If you have reflecting backgrounds, that could always lead to wrong exposures. That's it about exposure. It's hard for me to tell you what's the right exposure for your images, since we're not on manual cameras, since we have automatic cameras that just measure the incoming light into the sensor and then try to get it to that one level where it needs to be to have the right exposure in its opinion. But you have to keep in mind, what is your image looking like? Is it bright? Is it dark? How do I need to compensate for that? And just compensate a little bit and then you're on the right way. Keep that in mind for a right exposure. If you have any more questions, drop them in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, subscribe. And I'm really happy that you guys join in, and I'm back to the schedule of 1 video a week, and we will continue with the travel. See you next time. Bye!